Yeah. Now, before we get into storylines and other stuff, now let me clear this out. Now, if a trend line, now let's say you have one point here and another point here like this, and you connected the trend line like this. Okay. Now, let's say your trend line has a body closing above it, something like this, and then it has done all this stuff on the trend line. Okay. So let's say you have something like this. So now you cannot use this trend line again for a trade like this. Remember that very well. Okay, so if you have closings above it or below the trend line, you cannot use them. Okay, so that is very simple. Do not confuse that. Okay, do not confuse that. Very simple. So because I saw many people doing same mistake. Hope you guys understood it now. Okay, hope you guys understood it now. So do not make that mistake again. Okay, so it should be clear. It should be clear. Like the first, it could be any 2 points, but if there are closings above it or whatever, now it could be used like this, no problem. Okay, it can be used like this. That is not a problem. But let's say the market closed below it again like this, and it is something like this, and then if you're trying to use it once again like this, that is a mistake. Okay, so do not do that. Now the thing is, now, once we do the once we go through today's topic and all of that, you'll see that trend lines aren't even that important. Okay, it is important as confluence and as direction, but you're not going to rely on that. That's the thing. Okay, so all I wanted you to do was just train your eyes. Okay, train your eyes so that way, as soon as you open the charts, like yeah, once we do these sessions and backtesting sessions and all of that, you'll see why trend lines are important. Okay. So yeah, so let's dive into today's topic. Today we'll be talking about storylines. Okay, something very important, very, very important. So yeah, I will want all of you guys to practice this very well. Okay, because yeah, this is the most important thing of all. Okay, this is the most important topic of all. One, if you understand storylines properly, okay, if you master storylines, you will never get like lost with the direction. Okay, at least with the higher time frame direction. Of course, on the H4 and H1, you see so much stuff happening, right? But on the higher time frames, you don't see any of this, right? Like, for example, if you go to the weekly, do you see all that nonsense in there? No, right? Okay, you don't see any of that. But on the lower time frames, you will. Okay, so that is why we will be looking at storylines only on the monthly, weekly, and the daily time frame. There are no storylines on H4 and H1. Remember that very well. There's nothing. Okay, so don't even make that mistake. Do not like once you're practicing this, do not go to H4 or H1 and then look for storylines. That is completely wrong. Okay, storylines are only on daily, weekly, and monthly because daily, weekly, and the monthly time frame, they are our direction time frames. Okay, they are the direction time frames. So remember that very well. Okay, let's start. Now, a storyline. Now, for a storyline to start, there are two important things that need to happen, two important factors that you need to take into consideration. If either one of that is missing, there are no storylines. Simple. Okay, so there's nothing else to it. If these two factors are missing, there are no storylines. Okay, so yeah, now let's say for a weekly bearish storyline. Okay, for example, I'm using the weekly time frame now. How does a weekly bearish storyline start? Okay, now yeah, now most people might already know this. Okay, most people might already know this, but the thing is, theory isn't enough, right? Once we do the backtesting sessions, like you need to know how we use it. Okay, you need to know how we use it. So that is why I will explain this one by one. Okay, now some people might know this, some people might not, because yes, some people are brand new to this. So I'll go through this. Okay, now I'm using the weekly time frame as an example. Now, how does a weekly bearish storyline start? That's the okay. How does it start? Now, let's say we had a weekly resistance over here. Okay, now just assume that this right here, this line in here, this could be a weekly resistance. So now you know what support and resistance is, right? You know what support and resistance is. This is a closing price. This could be something like this, right? This could be the safe formation, or else this could be something like this, right? What is this? This is a support broken, turning into resistance, right? It could be whatever. Just keep in, or is even an open close level. Okay, it could even come from an open close level. Okay, just assume that this right here, this red line in here is a weekly resistance. Let me type it out so that way it's clear. Okay. Okay, so let's assume that there is a weekly resistance. Now, this is the first thing that needs to happen, okay, for a storyline to start. This is the first factor. Okay, that let's say a weekly candle, okay, a weekly candle has to tap into the weekly time, into the weekly resistance like this. Okay, I need to draw a straight line. Let's say weekly taps into this level. Now, this is a candle. Okay, just remember that this is a candle. Could be bullish or bearish, whatever. Like this. Let's say now this right here is the weekly time frame. This is a weekly candle. Let's say weekly tapped into the weekly resistance and then closed below it. Okay, remember a rejection. Okay, a rejection. This is a rejection from the level, right? This is a rejection from the level. What we need to see is weekly closing below the weekly resistance like this. So that right there is the first factor that we need to take into consideration. Okay, weekly closes below a weekly resistance. There goes your first one. Okay, weekly closes below a weekly resistance. And then the second thing that needs to happen is daily. Okay, always remember when we're dealing with storylines, it should be one time frame lower for the breakout. Okay, weekly has to close below the weekly resistance, and then the daily time frame has to give you a break of structure to the downside, like this. Okay, or simply daily has to create a bearish QM. One time frame lower, not 4 hour, not 1 hour, daily. Remember that very well. Okay. Now, those days when I was practicing, I thought, okay, daily or even H4 is fine. It worked, but not as accurate as this. Okay. So those days for weekly storyline, I even considered H4 breakouts, but I don't think it's that high probability. Okay. So that is why right now I only consider daily breakouts. Okay. So weekly has to close below the weekly resistance, and then daily has to give you a bearish breakout. Okay. Or else a bearish QM. There we go. If you have these two factors, okay, if you have these two factors, the bearish storyline starts. Okay, the bearish storyline starts. So let's say all of this has happened. Now we're going into a new week. Let's say we are going into a new week. So during the next week, what you do is you hunt for what? You hunt for selling opportunities. Okay, you are going to hunt for selling opportunities because weekly has started a bearish storyline. Now the thing is, now most people ask me, okay, how do we know where it's going to end? Okay, how do we know where it is going to end? Now, this is the thing. No one can guarantee you that. Now, let's say we had a weekly support in here. Normally, the market moves from support to resistance, right? The market will move from support to resistance. But the thing is, nobody can nobody can guarantee you that the bearish storyline is going to end on this support. Nobody can guarantee you that because it could even run through it like this. Okay, it could happen. It happens many times. So that is why now let's say it starts on this weekly resistance, and this is the nearest weekly support you have. So this is where you are going to partial out. Okay, now let's say the market is moving up. You're taking a sell from somewhere around here. This right here would be your potential target. Okay, why do we say a potential target? Because like I told you, nobody can guarantee you that the market is going to stop over here. No. Okay, so that is why you need to pay yourself here because what if it stops, right? We don't know. So the best thing to do is we're going to pay ourselves here. Okay, from the next weekly support. So from resistance to support or support to resistance. And then how does a weekly bearish storyline end? Okay, that's another question. How does a weekly bearish storyline end? The same way it started. Okay, the same way it started. Let's say the market came into this support and then the weekly candle closes above weekly. Let's say weekly closed above weekly and then daily gave you a bullish breakout. What happens? Weekly starts a bullish storyline. So from the next week onwards, what do? You start looking for buying opportunities. That is what you do from resistance to support, from support to resistance. Okay, now it is not as easy as it seems. Okay, now a drawing can be easy, can be understood very easily. But the thing is, once you get into the charts, you might wonder, okay, how does this happen here? Okay, so yeah, I'll explain. I'll show you a lot of examples so you will understand. Okay, so remember, at the end of every week, okay, at the end of every single week, you need to go to your weekly time frame and then check if you have this weekly rejecting weekly and then daily giving you a bearish breakout, or is weekly rejecting a weekly support, and if daily has given you a bullish breakout. Okay, so right now weekly has a bullish breakout. Okay, I'm sorry, weekly has started a bullish storyline. I'll show you. Okay, that is why we are getting these moves. That is why we're getting these moves. Okay, yesterday, not yesterday, day before yesterday, I think it was on Monday, daily started a bearish storyline, and that is why we got this drop yesterday. Okay, so I'll show you. This is very interesting once you master this. Okay, it is like, trust me, this is very, very interesting. And this is one of the best ways, in my opinion, this is the best way to identify direction. Okay, SMC can never get to this level, in my opinion. Okay, because We don't even know stuff like this in SMC right now. No offense, but even I was an SMC trader, but yeah, you got to be honest, right? SMC does not have any of this stuff, so you can't get to this level with SMC. Okay, so this is what should happen for a weekly bearish storyline to start. The weekly rejecting a weekly resistance and then daily giving you a bearish breakout. So if that happens, we say that weekly started a bearish storyline. Same thing, if weekly rejects a weekly support and if daily gives you a bullish breakout or as a bullish QM, okay, it could, then we say weekly starts a bullish toy line. Okay, so that like that, and then same thing. Okay, same thing when it comes to the daily time frame. Now let me yeah, change this. Let's say this is the daily resistance, and let's say this right here is a daily support, like this. So how does a daily storyline start? Same way the weekly starts. Okay, how does a daily storyline start? Daily has to reject a daily resistance, right? Daily has to reject a daily resistance. That is the first thing. That's the first factor. And then what's the second thing? H4, like I told you, always one time frame low. H4 has to give you what? H4 has to give you a bearish breakout or as a bearish QM. Then we say daily starts a bearish storyline. Okay, daily has started a bearish storyline. Can you assume that you only know that direction from Tuesday because you need that? Sorry, what can you assume that you only know the direction from Tuesday? No, no, no. I'll show you. I'll show you example. Don't worry. Okay, so that's that. And then same thing when it comes, once I finish explaining this theory part, I'll go to the charts and then you will understand. Okay, this is just the theory. Okay, and the same thing for a daily bullish storyline to start, daily has to reject a daily support, right? Daily has to reject a daily support, and then H4 has to do what? H4 has to give you a bullish QM or as a bullish breakout. Okay, H4 has to give you a bullish breakout. Then we say daily has started a bullish storyline. So from the next day, we look for buys. Right? From the next day, we look for buys. And then if this has happened, if let's say daily has closed below daily resistance and H4 has given you a bearish breakout, so from the next day, we look for selling opportunities. That is what we do. Okay, so like that, that is how a daily storyline starts. And then, so we've gone through weekly, we go through daily, and then we're gonna go through the monthly. Okay, now monthly storylines. I personally do not use monthly storylines a lot, but it is very helpful. It is very helpful if you know the monthly direction. But I personally I don't look into that a lot. Okay, so I'll explain why, because monthly storylines will take a lot of like a long time to get created, right? Because this thing takes around 27 days to close. Okay, and then for a weekly bearish breakout and all that, you'll have to wait a very long time. That's the thing. Okay, that is why I personally don't. I do use that, but not a lot. Okay, I mainly rely on weekly and daily direction. Okay, this is important. I always keep this in mind. I know how to use this, but I don't rely on that a lot. Okay, but I'll show you. I'll show you. How does a monthly bearish storyline starts? Monthly, yeah. How does it start? Monthly has to close below a monthly resistance, right? Monthly has to close below a monthly resistance, and then weekly has to give you a bearish breakout or as a bearish QM. Simple. The same way daily and weekly does, okay? Because price is fractal, right? Price is fractal. And then how does a monthly bullish storyline start? Monthly has to close above a monthly support, and then weekly has to give you a bullish breakout or a bullish QM. Okay, or a bullish QM. Now, entries, now there is something called obstacles as well. We will go through them later, slowly. Okay, because you need to master this thing first. Okay, you need to train your eyes to see this thing first. Okay, so that is why like this is what we're going to talk about today. I'll show you examples of storylines. Then in the next session, we'll be going through obstacles. Okay, so an obstacle is very simple. Not simple. I'm not going to give you the idea that it is simple. Okay, so this will be tough. This will be tough until you master it properly. Okay, so let's say daily resistance, daily support. Now let me delete all of this. Okay, now I've gone through the theory. Now I'll give you a little hint of what an obstacle is. Let's say this right here is a weekly resistance, right? Okay, let's say this is a weekly resistance and this right here is a weekly support. Okay, let's say this is a weekly resistance and let's say this is a weekly support. Now, like I told you, now let's just say weekly has rejected a weekly resistance like this. and then daily gives you a bearish breakout. Then what do you know? What do you know? Then you know that weekly starts a bearish toy line, right? Weekly has started a bearish toy line. So then let's assume this is your closest weekly support. Okay, let's assume this is your closest weekly support. Then what are you expecting? Like I told you, from the next week, you are expecting sells into these areas, right? Sells into these areas. But there is something that will push, that will stop price from moving into this area right away. Okay, because why? We will get pullbacks, right? The market is not going to just move from here to here in just one candle. No, what do we get? Okay, along the way we will get pullbacks, 100 to 150 pullbacks, might drop, might pull back up. That is how the market moves, right? So in a weekly bearish toy line, pullbacks are as obstacles. Yeah, I'll call it pullbacks so that way it's better. Pullbacks will be coming from the daily time frame. So in order to trade the pullbacks, you're going to look into the daily supports. Okay, so remember, in a weekly bearish toy line, a daily support will be an obstacle. Okay, a daily support will be an obstacle. Now this gets very interesting once we get into the charts. Now we will go through obstacles later in the next session. Now let's dive into toy lines. I'll show you examples of toy lines on the chart itself. Okay, so let's start. Let me go to weekly. Why did I tell you? Now this is why I told you need to quickly train your eyes to understand these toy lines, SNR, trend lines, and all that stuff. Because I told you last week we started a bullish toy line on the weekly, right? Can anyone spot why it started? Why it started a bullish toy line? Can anyone spot that? Okay, see now. It's okay that you can't spot it, because if you are new to this, you can't do it right away. Okay, so that is not a problem. Okay, I'm not putting anyone down or anything. Okay, so it'll be hard to spot right away, but that is the reason why I'm not going to like make this a mess. Okay, that is why I want to go one by one. So now we're going to talk about direction, like which means storylines, and then later we'll be talking about obstacles. Okay, now why did I tell you last week started a bullish storyline? Let me show you. What is this? A bearish candle and a bullish candle, right? What does a bearish candle and a bullish candle create? It creates a support. Yeah. Okay. So it creates a support like this. So now I told you last week started a bullish storyline, right? So let's wait for the last week's candle to end. Okay. So I'll tell you why I told you that last week started a bullish storyline. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. There we go. Now the weekly candle is over. Now what has it done? Look at the rejection. Weekly. Okay, now it doesn't matter how far down it goes. Okay, now the wick can be like this long. Doesn't matter. The wick can be this long. It doesn't matter. All you need to consider is weekly closing above the weekly support. Can you say? Like, just remember, okay, it doesn't matter how long your wick is into that resistance. It doesn't matter how deep that, like how deep it went down. It does not matter at all. All you need to see is if weekly has rejected a weekly support. Do we have that? Yes, we do. Can you say? Okay. Now, also some people might come into an argument. Okay, weekly has also rejected a weekly resistance. See that? Okay, now these are questions that might arise when you start backtesting. Okay, that is why I'm going to show it to you right away. Now, another person can come to me and tell me, okay, weekly has also rejected a weekly resistance. Okay, but what did I tell you? For a storyline to start, either weekly has to reject a weekly resistance and give a bearish breakout on the daily, or else weekly has to reject a weekly support and give a bullish breakout on the daily, right? I'm sorry, I had to go. Okay, no problem. Okay, so yeah, now what do we have? Now we have weekly rejecting a weekly support. And what's the next thing we need to do? We need to go where? We need to go into the daily time frame, right? We need to go into the daily time frame to look for a breakout. So let me go to the daily. Now, if I go to the daily, what has happened that week? Check the line chart. What is this? What is this? A bullish QM was created, right? That same week. Look at this. If I put a line here, that's the start of the week. Now let me go to the daily. This is where the week started. What happened on that same week? The same week that weekly rejected weekly, daily gave you a bullish QM. This is what we call a QM, right? I hope you guys know what QMs are. Okay, a QM is something like this, very simple. No, not that. Something like this. This is what we call a QM. Lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, higher highs. That is what we call a QM. Look at this. Lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, higher highs. Break in this. Can you see that? So now we can come to a conclusion. What? A conclusion that weekly has started a bullish storyline. Okay, now look how interesting this gets. Okay, just look how interesting this gets. Can't even get any better. Okay, now yeah, like I told you, weekly rejects a weekly. See, I told you some people can come to an argument, right? Weekly has rejected a weekly resistance as well. But which side is the daily breakout? That is the most important thing. Which side is the daily breakout? Okay, that happened on the same week. Which side is the daily breakout? It is a bullish breakout. So this rejection does not matter. Now, this does matter. We will get into that later. These are just deep advanced topics. Okay, like why we consider this and all that. That is advanced, but I'll show you. Now look at this. Now, can you guys agree with me? Weekly has started a bullish storyline. How? Weekly rejects a weekly support very clearly, right? Weekly rejects a weekly support and then daily gives you a bullish QM. There we go. Now, what do we have? Now we have a weekly bullish storyline, right? Now, this is what I explained, right? Now we have a weekly bullish storyline. Why? Because weekly rejected a weekly support and then daily gave you a bullish breakout, right? Daily gave you a bullish breakout. Perfect. Now, another thing that you need to understand. Now, we talked about obstacles, right? This is how you can trade obstacles. I'm going to give you a little hint because this thing worked perfectly this week so far. I'll show you. Now, I told you in a weekly bullish storyline, okay, in a weekly bullish storyline, what will be your obstacles, right? In a weekly bullish storyline, what will be your obstacles? Can someone answer, right? Always one time.
Daily resistance.
Exactly. Okay, so a daily resistance will be your obstacle, right? Now, what is this? A new daily resistance. Look at this. Can you say this is a good zone to pay attention to, right? For selling. But remember now, weekly is bullish. Now we have a daily resistance to pay attention to, right? We have a daily resistance to pay attention to. Okay, because it's a weekly bearish storyline. I'm sorry, a weekly bullish storyline. Daily creates a new resistance. So this is a good zone for you to pay attention to, right? That's a good zone for you to pay attention to. Now, what you could do is remember in a weekly bullish storyline. Okay, now let's say weekly starts a bullish storyline. Daily will be the time frame for obstacles and even for entries. Okay, even for entries, you need to pay attention to the daily supports. Okay, now the best daily support will be the one that is in line with the weekly time frame. What is this? A weekly open close, right? And then these can be refined into lower time frame. Of course, yesterday's drop was way deep. Okay, now I tried to buy it here and got stopped out. I'm not gonna lie, okay, because I can't give you false promises, right? Like I can't sell dreams here, right? I can't tell you, okay, every time this happens, it taps here and then moves up. No, that can't happen. Okay, now one thing you need to keep in mind is that this whole thing in here is your weekly support, right? This whole thing in here is your weekly support. So inside of this weekly support, the lower time frame, the market could even tap into the lower time frame supports. That is one thing you need to understand. So I bought it here, got stopped out. Okay, so losses are just a part of the game. If you know to manage your risk, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, and then this is where my first entry was. Second entry was right here. This is the last support we had, right? Inside of this weekly, this is the whole weekly support we had. Inside of that, this is the last support we have. Can you see? This is the last support we have. Okay, now look at this. This is how you can do ping pong and all of that. Okay, now we go to H4. Once we do the backtesting sessions, you will understand. Do not worry. Okay, I'm showing you how we could have played along with this. Okay, now what is this? This whole thing in here now. This is how I bought it. This right here is the weekly support, right? This is where the weekly support started. I refined this weekly support into this H4 open close. Now let me put it again. This is where the weekly support was. Okay, this right here, this is where the weekly support was. I refined this into this H4 open close and had a buy limit here, and I got stopped out. Okay, so yeah, that happened. Not a problem, not a problem, because like I told you, losses are just a part of the game. If you know how to manage your risk well, you don't have to worry about the losses. Okay, now you can always make it a habit to refine these higher time frame levels. This was your weekly level. We refined it to H4, and we also had in mind that this whole thing was a weekly support. So this daily support was inside of the weekly support. So that's a good zone to pay attention to. Okay, now you can mark this one out. You can mark this one out. No problem. But yeah, I went for we call this the last resort, because inside of the weekly support, this is the last daily support we have, right? This is the last daily support we have. That is why I use that. Now, this is a daily resistance. So this daily resistance can be refined into lower time frames once again. So if you go to H4, maybe you can refine it here. What is that? A resistance, right? Can you see that? That's a resistance. If you go to H1, let's check H1. Yeah, maybe see here. We have another resistance in here. This was the daily level. You can use this. This is where I bought it, got stopped out. Where my next buy was right here. Okay. So yeah, now look what happened. Okay, look what happened. On Monday, first one, second one, third one. There we go. London opens, right? London opens, and then what happened? Where does the sell come from? You could have sold it here, or else you could have sold it here, no problem. Either like whatever you wanted to use, no problem. But always make sure you do the refinement, because it's always better. See, we had these trend lines. Now, like I told you, the trend lines doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, the trend line doesn't have to be perfect. If it's perfect, good. But if it is not perfect, don't force it. Okay, so look at this. Rejection, open, close breaks, all that. Look at this. Taps once again. Look at the timing. Very important. New York open time. Taps, melts. Like that. Look at this. So how many pips is that? Right away, you have 160 pips. 160 pips. What more do you need, right? That's more than enough. There you go. Okay. 160 pips. So where are you holding it into? Where are you holding it into? These were our next weekly and H4 levels, right? These were the next weekly and H4 levels. So you can hold the sell into that. So I not hold it there. I took my profits here, right here, because for me, I always make it a habit to pay myself at this external range liquidity, because if you take this as a range from here to here, this will be your external range liquidity, right? So I pay myself there, no problem. Look at the drop. So where did it come from, and why did it come from? Where it came from? That is the most important question, right? It came from a daily resistance. Why did it come from a daily resistance? Because weekly was in a bullish storyline, so daily resistance will be an obstacle. So look at that. Dropped, melted. Okay, melted. Now if we wait, look at this. Now if we waited for this day to end, something important happened this day. Okay, now look at this. The day is over. Let me go to the daily time frame. What happened? Something important happened. What happened on the daily time frame? Look at this. Daily rejects a daily resistance. Can you see that? Daily rejects a daily resistance. You can see that very clearly. And what's the next thing that needs to happen for a storyline to start? Now, daily has rejected a daily resistance. If you go to H4, H4 has done what? Yeah, H4 has done what? A breakout. Can you see it? H4 has done a breakout. Yeah, so which means very clearly, what do we have? We have a bearish storyline, right? We have a bearish storyline on the daily time frame. So which means now once again you can start looking for sells until the previous day's low is taken out into this here. Now I did this, I got stopped out once again because we had news, and then oh no, I did not get stopped out. I got stopped out at break even. Let me show you. Okay, now this is the thing. Once again, if it is a daily bearish storyline, right? If it is a daily bearish storyline, on what time frame will your entries be? Your entries will be on the H4 time frame, right? On the H4 time frame. So now if we go to H4, what did we have on the H4? We had an open close, right? We had this open close. If you come here, you can pick either one of these as a QML or as a left shoulder, whatever, or as let's go for this resistance. That is what I did, right? This resistance in here, we had all of that. Okay, now look how important this is now. Okay, look how important this is. Now we know that, okay, daily is bearish, weekly is bullish. So we could sell it into the next daily and weekly zones that were in here, right? So now if we wait for the first two candles to end, now that is what I normally do. I always wait for the first two H4 candles to end, because that is Asia. I do not trade Asia. If you, yeah, most of you guys had one-on-one sessions with me. So you know I do not trade Asia, right? I do not trade Asia. So I skip Asia. So the first two H4 candles will be Asia. I'm going to skip that. Okay. First one, And the second one. Now look at this, something important is happening here. This day we have high impact news, and Asia has created a high. Okay, Asia has created its high right below a resistance. Can you see that? So now we will go through all of this. Okay, so don't even think about liquidity, how we use that and all of that. I'm just showing you what went on my mind this day. Okay, that is what I'm showing you. I will, like, once you go into the backtesting sessions, you will understand all this. For now, just completely focus on what do we say? Just completely focus on this storylines only. Okay, focus on storylines only. Look at this. Now this resistance becomes the high probability one, right? Because why? We have this Asian high below it. We have all that stuff as well. Okay, so I did sell it here. I did sell it here, and I wanted to target all the way down here. Got stopped out at break even. Let me show you. It did this, and look at this. News came at I think 6 p.m. I don't remember. Let me see. Yeah, once it went back up. I was still on the sell, still on the sell. Okay, did not move it to break even because we did not get any breakouts or anything for me to move it to break. I'll tell you when I move it to break even and all of that later. Okay, like I told you, let's only focus on storylines for now. Not yet. There it comes. Okay, so it did do a drop. Now, if you pay close attention, you will see if you were yeah, let me go to the 1 minute RS. You won't trust me. Okay. Now this sell move happened before this buy move. Okay, like it dropped here, the next candle opened here, dropped, and then it moved back up. Okay, so I could have paid myself. Look at this, 145 pips. Could have paid myself, right? I did not do that. I had my target set here. Okay, I had my target set here. Never expected this huge thing to happen. But look at this. Let me show that to you. See this? The sell happened before the buy. Can you see it? Opens, drops, and then it moved up. Okay, so you had enough time to pay yourself. You had enough time to pay yourself. I did not do that. Okay, I did not do that. But one thing important you need to note: why did it pull back up from here? Why? Why did it pull back from here? What did we have in here for the market to pull back from? Let me show you. If I put the replay tool here, let's check where it pulled back from. Asian low and a support. Same thing we did here, Asian high and a resistance, Asian low and a support. Look at this. And why do we pay attention to the H4 support? Because in a daily bearish storyline, who are your obstacles? Your obstacles will be on the H4 time frame. Daily bearish storyline, H4 support obstacle. The obstacle was the one that played out. Can you see that? The obstacle was the one that got played out in here. Okay, and even the sell from the top, where did that come from? Where did this come from? From H4. Because why? Daily bearish storyline. I saw someone marked this out, right? In our group, someone marked this out in here, this resistance. Okay, so look at that. H4 resistance. Why do we pay attention to the H4 levels? Because in a daily bearish storyline, H4 will be the time frame for entries and obstacles. So look at this. This one, this entry, all of it was from the H4. Okay, all of that was from the H4, and then yeah, I couldn't pay myself here, got stopped out at break even, and then had a buy limit set here, did not expect to get stopped out. I thought we might move from here, but this happened. Okay, but this happened. Don't worry, because since these are high risk buys. Okay, so we did not get any confirmation yet. Now there are three types of entries. Okay, high risk, low risk, high risk, medium risk, and then low risk. Okay, so you need to understand how much you're going to risk for, like how much money you're going to risk for a high risk setup, how much you're going to risk for a low risk and a medium risk. Okay, so of course you're not going to risk the same amount you risk for a low risk setup on a high risk setup, right? So these losses aren't even anything. Okay, you won't even feel it on your accounts. Okay, and then yeah, the next buy was from right here. This was the last daily support you had, if you remember, like that. Taps, there it goes. See that? And then there it goes. Now, even this day, now this is where this is something very important, something most people don't talk about. Okay. Now, if I go to the daily time frame, daily was bearish, but what do we know? We know that weekly was bullish, right? Weekly was bullish, daily was bearish, and currently we are inside of daily and weekly supports, right? So which means now we need to be paying attention for buys, right? Why are we paying attention for buys? because weekly is in a bullish storyline. This daily bearish storyline was only a pullback into the next buying levels. Can you understand that? Okay, so I know it might be a little hard to digest. Okay, don't worry. Once you watch the session again and again, you will understand that with the chart examples, you will see. Okay, so now what has happened? Now it has come back into where? Now it has come back into weekly and daily support. So which means now you can start looking for buys, right? Now you can start looking for buys. I already had my buy limit set here. I already had my buy limit set here. Now remember, now we're going to buy this, but this day you can't confirm that we are bearish on the day, right? Because once again, daily showed us that the daily time frame has started a bearish story. Now why? Daily rejects a daily. Can you say? Daily has rejected a daily resistance. And if you go to H4, what did we have? On the H4, we clearly had a breakout. Can you say? So which means we can even look for selling opportunities this day, right? But we need to prioritize buying since weekly was bullish. So for long-term trades or as for swing entries, you can go with the weekly. But for intraday, right? But for intraday setups, what can you do? You can trust the daily time frame, right? You can trust the daily and the H4. So now, if it is a daily bearish storyline, right? If it is a daily bearish storyline, which time frame will your entries come from? H4, right? So now on the H4, we have some good levels to pay attention to. Can you see this level in here? SPR, the closest level we have is here, right? Why is this a good level? Why are we considering this to be a good level? Because can you see how it was used as a support once? It was once used as a support. That is why the market rejected that. And now it is broken. So once the support is broken, we can expect it to act as a resistance. Okay, so now what you could do is refine this level into this open close. Can you see that? This one refined here. Okay, H4, H1 level, H4, H1 level. Why are we looking for a sell in here? That's the closest level we have. Okay, so now like I told you, don't pay a lot of attention to these sides. You will get confused. Just stick to the current price action you have. Okay, just stick to the current price action you have. Now, if you wait for H4, if you wait for Asia to end, okay, if you wait for Asia to end, that is the first two candles, first one, second one. The same thing that I showed you in these examples, I think. The same thing, yes, same thing that I showed you in here is happening here. What is this? Asia has created a high right below these levels, making it even better, right? Making it even better. Now, do you see, like, you don't even have to stress about trend lines. Did I even use any trend line for any of these? No, I didn't even show you any trend lines, right? I'll show you that. A daily storyline ends the same way it started. Okay, daily has to reject daily and H4 has to give you a bullish breakout. That is when we know a daily storyline has ended. Okay, remember, storyline ends the same way it starts. Very simple. Okay, so there we go. Asia has created a lot of liquidity right below this area. So which means now you can trust these areas for a sell, right? For a sell, you can trust that. So what happened? There we go. Another swing high was created. Took that out. Look at that. Can you see it? Can you see it? 230. Okay. Something, another important thing. Okay. This is why you need to, like, your decision making skills should be very fast. Okay. It should be very, very fast when you are trading. That is why flexibility is number one. Now, if you are taking a sell here, can you target all the way down here? No. Why? Because you need to understand that this whole thing is coming from a daily and a weekly level, right? So this move might last long, right? So you need to have, like, understand all that stuff. This move might even last long because why? This is coming from a daily and a weekly level, and weekly was still bullish, right? Weekly was still bullish. So if you are taking a sell here, where should your closest target be? Let's go to H4 now. A new H4 candle is coming. Your next closest target should be this support. Once again, why this support? Ask me. Okay, question. Why is this support your closest zone to take profits from? Because we were in a daily bearish storyline, right? So in a daily bearish storyline, who are your obstacles? H4 supports. Can you see how interesting this is? Like, this is so powerful, very, very powerful, but you need to, yeah, that's why I told you, I'm not going to give you everything at once. Okay, I can show you, like, I can cover all of this in a 5 hour or 6 hour session, show you everything about, like, show you a bunch of examples, storylines and all, but you guys will be exhausted and nothing will go to your head. That is why I'm trying to show you only storylines and direction and all that only. Okay, so now look at this. If you are taking a sell here, where is your closest target? The next H4 support. Why do we pay attention to H4? Because previous day we saw how daily rejected that daily open close. Let me quickly show it to you once again. The previous day, did you see what happened? Daily rejects a daily open close. Then why not the open close support below? Oh, bro, you need to understand this. Okay, let me show you. Look at this. Daily rejects the daily resistance, and then H4 gave you a bearish breakout. So we know that daily has started what? Daily has started a bearish toy line, right? Daily has started a bearish toy line. That is what we know, right? So in a daily bearish toy line, like I told you, H4 will be the time frame for obstacles. Okay, so now you're asking me, okay, why not this, right? Why not this? That is what you're asking me, right? Why not this?
Yes.
Now look at this. Now, before this, there's another thing in here, right? How do you know 100% that the market is not going to react here? How do you know that? You don't know that, right? So whatever comes first, that should be your potential target. Now, like nobody can guarantee, okay, it's going to take this one out, and this is also a London low, not Asian low. Look at this, created at 11:30. Okay, so you can nobody can guarantee, okay, it's going to take this one out and then tap here. No, don't do that. Okay, so be flexible. This is the problem with SMC. Okay, this is the problem with SMC traders. They trade what they think, okay, not what they see. That's the main problem. So don't do that. This is your closest target because this is what we have here. Okay, this is the closest support we have. So now if you have taken this sell already, this is where you are going to pay yourself. So how many pips is that? From here to here we have 50 pips intraday. Okay, that is your intraday target. So what happened? See that? You could have even entered though. Okay, you could have even entered the buy. Why? Look at the rejection from both the levels. Look at the rejection from both the levels. Okay. Now you also understand that this whole thing is coming from a weekly level. Weekly was bullish. Now they have tapped into weekly and day level. So you could have even entered the buy here once we got this. So what did news do? Boom. Can you see that? Okay. So it's very strong if you understand it. Okay. It is very, very strong if you understand it. Okay. So that is why now they're still messing around. Now they're still playing around because we have FOMC today, right? I think we have FOMC today. So in my opinion, I think these highs might get wiped out today with FOMC because weekly is bullish. Okay, so I think these highs might get wiped out. Okay, so let's see. I'm not very sure because daily is still in a bearish toy line. Can you say? Daily is still in a bearish toy line. So we can't be very sure if these highs are going to get wiped out or not. But yeah, I think these highs might get wiped out into this resistance. The closest resistance we have might get wiped out into these areas. Okay, so now I'm already on a buy in here. I'm already on a buy in here. Did not even pay myself because no point of paying myself here, right? Because it's a high risk setup. Now I'll show you because for high risk setups, you're not going to just close it with around like 50 to 100 pips. No, okay, because these are coming from weekly time frame. So it's going to be long-term setups. It's going to be long-term setup. So there's no point of paying yourself at 50 to 100 pips. Okay, see, like already it is up by 200 pips. Okay, so I'm expecting these highs to get wiped out. So that is what I'm saying because weekly is in a bullish toy line. Okay, weekly is in a bullish trend. So that is that. Now look at this. Okay, so that was this week. Now, like I told you, I'm expecting maybe the previous week's high to get taken out. That is what I'm expecting currently. Where did the weekly bearish toy line start? Can you spot that? Look at this. It is always there. Okay, don't think it is not there. It is always there. I put the replay tool here. Can you see that weekly started a bearish toy line? How did it start? Can someone spot? Can someone please annotate just so I know you guys understood that? Yeah, exactly. This one, right? Perfect. Okay, look at this. What did weekly do? Weekly rejected a weekly resistance, right? Now, like I told you, oh, you could also come to an argument, oh, weekly rejected a weekly support as well. Then what did I tell you? Go to the daily time frame and then look for the breakout, right? Go to the daily time frame and then look for the breakout. That is what I told you, right? Now, if I go to the daily time frame, what has the daily done? Do you see any type of a bullish breakout here? Do you see any type of a bullish breakout here on the daily? Nothing, right? You don't see any. You don't see anything. Okay. So can you say weekly is in a bearish toy line? No, right? You can't say weekly is in a bearish toy line, right? You can't. Okay. So now look at this. Weekly is not in a bullish toy line. Weekly is in a bearish toy line. Why? Weekly rejected a weekly resistance, right? Let's delete this. Not important. weekly rejected a weekly resistance. And then if you go to the daily time frame, daily has done a bearish breakout. So you could take this breakout, no problem, or else even this major breakout. But this is the best one. This is the best breakout because this breakout happened on that same week as the rejection. Okay, that is one thing you need to focus on. If the breakout happened on the same week, the market rejected that zone, it's the best one. Okay, so look at this. This breakout happened inside of that same week. Okay, so you could, even this is fine, but this is better. Okay, any of it. Now, what do we know? Weekly started a bearish storyline, right? Weekly started a bearish storyline. Okay, look at this. You can go up and down with this if you understand this very well. Okay. Now, what do you know? Weekly is in a bearish storyline. So then what can we do? We can expect sells until the next week's low is taken out, right? We can expect sells until the next week's low is taken out. So where are we to sell it from? That is important, right? Oh my God, I'll show you this example. You see how strong this is. Okay, so let me show you. Weekly starts a bearish storyline that is confirmed. Then where are you going to sell it from? I told you like if it's a weekly bearish storyline, your entries are going to come from the daily time frame. That is what I told you, right? That is what I told you. Then again, I told you your best entries or is your best zones are going to come from the weekly and the daily levels, right? So now if I go to the weekly, now what do we have in here? We have a good zone in here to pay attention to. Why is this a good zone to pay attention to? Because can you see how it was used as a support once? Now I've shown you a lot of examples this way. A good support is broken. So once a good support is broken, it turns into what? A resistance, right? Now, normally when you have breaks with this huge momentum, you can't expect it to get back into this origin. Okay, it can, but it does not go there most of the time. So you need to look for nearby levels. So what are the closest levels we have on the weekly? We have this level, and then we have this level for selling, right? For sales, these are the two levels we have, right? These are the two levels we have. Okay, so there we go. Now let's go to the daily. Let's see if we could refine this. Now on the daily, of course, we had nothing to refine this into. This was this, and this was here. Nothing to refine it into. Now this, I'm not going to refine it here. You can, but then again, look at this. This is around, yeah, 58 pips away. Okay, I'll show you. I refine it to the H4. So this was these two were your original weekly levels. And then in a weekly bearish storyline, now you know that weekly started a bearish storyline. In a weekly bearish storyline, on what time frame do you have your obstacles? Daily. So now what do we have on the daily? A new support in here and a new support in here. Right? Now, if you are taking sells in from one of these zones, your closest target should be where? All the way down here. That's a 250 pip target. That's the thing about weekly and daily storylines. Okay, you can always have huge targets, not even like 100 to 150 pips, more than 200 250 pips. Okay, if you are with the higher time frames, if you are in line with your higher time frames, look at this. And also now this week, what do we know? We know that weekly started a bearish storyline. Okay, perfect. Now let's go to the daily. Okay, we can go to the daily. Daily is also bearish, right? Now we know in here weekly is in a bearish storyline. Daily is also in a bearish storyline. Where did the daily bearish storyline start? Okay, where did the daily bearish storyline start? All the way up here, and it never ended. Can you see it? This is where the daily bearish storyline started. Daily rejected a daily resistance, and then H4 gave us that breakout. Can you see it? H4 gave us the breakout, and from that point onwards, it was still melting. Okay, it was just melting. Okay, now let me go to the daily. Now, what do we know? These are zones that you could be aware of because weekly is in a bearish storyline. Daily supports will be your obstacles. And yeah, now what you could do is refine all of these into lower time frames. I've always told that to you, right? Now let's go to H4. Now this zone can be refined here like this. Okay. And this one, look at this. This is the weekly level, can be refined here to this resistance. This weekly level can be refined to this resistance. Can you understand that? Okay, that can be refined to that resistance. And these zones, now this we already did a refinement, right? This was the daily level, we refined it to the H4. And even this one, I think I refined it to the H1. Let me show you. Here's the thing, you need to be very flexible when trading this way, okay? Because only flexibility will help you here, nothing else, okay? Nothing else. If you understand this and if you are willing to be flexible, okay, yeah, this is unstoppable. Okay, look at this. Refined this. This was the daily level into the last support we had here on the H1. See that? Never tapped that. Okay, you can say never mitigated or whatever word you want to use. Never tapped it. Okay, so there we go. Now these are the zones that you could pay attention to, right? So now if we start Monday, okay, if we start with Monday, Monday did something very important. Okay, Monday did something very important. We did not have any entries on Monday or Tuesday, I think. I don't remember. Let's see. Okay, never tapped into the weekly level. Can you say? Never tapped. First one dropped. Asia left its high. Monday's Asian high left behind, left below the weekly and H4 levels. You think this is something random? No. Of course, if you have news, okay, on a high impact news week, these aren't random stuff. Okay, these are not random stuff. Like, why couldn't they just tap here, right? Why did they leave it here? Not random. Okay, not random. Most people will try to look for cells in here and all that. Then what happens? Look at that. Didn't tap yet. Did not tap yet. Yet we did get a manipulation of the Asian high, but still never tapped here. I had my entries here, one entry here and another entry here. Okay, now you might wonder, okay, what if it goes here? What if it goes here? If you are someone who thinks like that, you will never have an entry. Then I can also say, okay, what if it goes here? What if it goes here? No, you need to be able to take the risk. Okay, so these are two. This is one zone and this is one zone. Just consider this as one zone and this as one zone. So we have two zones. Okay, so if you, what you could do is maybe like go half risk here and half risk here. Let's say you are using a one standard, you can go 0.50 here, 0.50 here, no problem. And after, if you get a confirmation, you can go full risk. Okay, so that is what we can do. I'll show you all of that. Do not worry. Right now, I'm only showing you how we can play with storylines and obstacles and all that stuff. Okay, so there we go. We have this, never tapped into that. Okay, so this is 11:30, London Open, no entries, dropping. Because why no entries? This is risky, right? This is completely risky. So you're not going to take any entries. Let it go. Let it go. Let them do whatever they want to do, because you don't want to just for the sake of an intraday trader, you don't want to pull the trigger on every single setup you see, right? No, I don't want to do that. I don't know if you guys want to, but I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. Okay, I always want the best setup possible. Okay, I'll always trade the best setup only. Okay, so look at this. Leaving behind all of this, I'm not I know. Okay, like you can laugh when something like this happens, because you know that people are trying, like, for sure some people will try to sell from this resistance, and at some point you're going to get stopped out. You need to understand that. Okay, because there are even much better zones up here, weekly levels. Okay, and we are in a weekly bearish storyline, so these are the best zones to pay attention to. Okay, so look at this. No entries, no entries. 7:30, 11:30. So this is how the day ended. Look at this, how the day ended. Let's go to the daily. Not a very important day, right? Not a very, a lot did not happen, right? A new resistance was created. No problem. You can pay attention to that. A new resistance was created, but then again, the best zones are here, right? The weekly levels, and we have this previous day's high created right below these weekly levels as well. Okay, so we have that. Let's go to H4, back to H4. Now we can once again wait. We can once again wait. First one, okay. This Asia made a drop. We don't know where it came from. We don't even bother. Let's wait. Second one. Okay, so now what happened? London has opened, right? London is about to open. We have the Asian low. We have this. I don't know. I did not take the buy here. I did not take the buy here. I'm showing you what happened. I remember this thing. Okay, so Asian low was created. Now I could have taken the buy, but let me show you why I did not take the buy. Okay, so look at this. Asian low, right? This was the Asian low, all that. And then this was the daily and the H4 level. This is an obstacle, right? This is an obstacle. So what happened? It dropped. It dropped and it closed below it. Can you see it? It closed below that level. See, this was, if you zoom in, you'll see that very clearly. It closed below. So after that closing, I thought, okay, maybe they're going to drop here. So I'm not going to take any buys in here. So I'll wait. That is what I thought. Okay, that is what I thought. And then, like, even if I placed a buy limit here, I would have got stopped out. Look at this, because I use a 20 to 25 pip stop loss. See, that's 30 pips. I would have got stopped out here anyway. Okay, I would have got stopped out. So that's okay. That's okay. Now, if I wait for this day to end, then the fun starts. Let me show you. Okay, let it go. 3:30. 7:30 and 11:30. Okay. Now look at this. Now we have something very important happening. Every new day, what do? We go to the daily time frame to see if we have any new storylines or whatever, right? Now, if I go to the daily has started a bullish storyline. Okay, look how interesting this day was. Okay, this was a perfect day to explain storylines. Okay, let me show you. Look at this. Daily has rejected a daily support. Okay, that's one thing. So for a daily bullish storyline to start, what should happen? Daily has to reject daily. What's the next thing? H4 has to give you a bullish breakout. So let's go to H4. What has the H4 done? QM. Can you see the QM here? Which happened on the same day. Isn't that a QM? I told you, right? Lower lows, lower highs, high highs. That's a QM. We have the QM. So now you know that daily started a bullish storyline very clearly. Daily starts a bullish storyline. So now this day, what can you do? You can confidently buy it into the next weekly levels. So you have, how many pips is that? An 80 pip buy. Can you say more it was more than 80 pips? I'll show you. Okay, more than 80 pips. So now clearly daily starts a bullish storyline. Okay, daily starts a bullish storyline. Weekly is bearish. So you need to understand that this is only a pullback into the weekly zones. Now you see how interesting this gets, right? You can read this like a book. Okay, you can read this like a book. First, try to do this in hindsight. Okay, first try to do this in hindsight because you need to understand the stuff clearly, right? You can't do it in real time right away. I couldn't do it right away. Okay, when I was getting like understanding this, how I couldn't do it right away in real time. It was very tough. Okay, that is why hindsight, yeah, with the benefit of hindsight, you can study all of this. Okay, because Dear the gold digger, I always talk about her, right? She always tells that the history repeats itself in this market. Okay, so if you understand what's happening here now, even ICT tells that, right? Knowledge comes from the left side of the chart, and then experience comes from the right side of the chart. So which means you need to study this side before getting here. Okay, so please study this. Okay, because the same thing happens again and again. Look at this. Okay, that was off topic. Look at this. Daily closes above daily, and then if you go to H4, H4 gives you a bullish breakout. Very clearly, daily starts a bullish storyline. Okay, you need to understand that. So if it is a daily bullish storyline, which time frame will give you entries? H4, right? H4 will be the time frame for entries. Now, are you going to directly mark out this level and then say, oh, I'm going to buy it here? I'm going to buy it from this support. No, because I told you now I told you the entries are going to come from the H4 time frame. But the best zone will be where? The best entry zone will be the daily and the H4 level, not a random H4 level, but a daily and a H4 level. Now, if I go to daily, new daily support, a good zone to pay attention to, right? Because at the start of the week, weekly was in a bearish storyline. So in a weekly bearish storyline, who will be your obstacles? Daily time frame, daily support, a good zone to pay attention to, right? Like, look at this. This day was just perfect. Now, what do we know? Weekly bearish, daily bullish. Okay, let's go to H4 to see if we can do any refinements. This one, could I refine here? No problem, but I refined it to this H1. There was a good level here on the H1. This level in here, can you see that? Open, close, right here. Why is this a good level? Because can you see how it was used as a resistance like 3 times? First here, 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 and now it is broken. So it can be used as support. So daily level refined to the H1. Okay, H1, and also, yeah, we had this and all that, see? Okay, we had this break and retest trend line. Let's get into trend lines later, okay? Because once you add trend lines, it gets even better. Let's talk about trend lines later. So we had that trend line and all of that. Now this day, okay, now you know that this is the daily support. These are your weekly resistance. So if you are trying to take a buy here, your next target is all the way up here. Look at that. That is a 111 pip target. Worth the risk, right? Worth the risk. But this is why you need to be flexible, very flexible. Okay. There is another thing that you need to pay attention to. What's that? Now we know that. Let me take this date and price range or something. Let's say these your potential targets. Entry here, target here. But there's one thing stopping price from moving all the way up here. What is that? In a daily bullish storyline, what are your obstacles? H4.
H4 resistance.
Exactly. So what do we have in here? H4 resistance, untapped, previous day's high, right below it. Can you see that? Now remember, you can take trades here, but these are the best. Okay, these are short term, these are long term. Why? These are weekly levels, this is just a H4 level, right? You need to understand that very well. And also, if you go to the H1 time frame, you will see all this liquidity sitting below that level. See how interesting this gets? You need to have a little bit of SMC knowledge. SMC, like I told you, SMC is only 5% here. Okay, SNR is the main thing. Okay, now look at this. This one. Now the reason SMC is important is because of this: buying areas, obstacle areas, swing entry areas. Right? Why swing entries? Because these are your weekly setups. Right? These are your weekly setups. Now this is the thing. If you are taking a buy here, this is where you close it. For this, of course, taking this or not is completely up to you. This is risky. But if you are taking a buy here, this is where you're going to close. If you are taking a sell here, this is where you're going to close. Right? Weekly, this was your next daily obstacle because that obstacle we had here on the daily is already played out. Right? Now your next daily obstacle is all the way down here. So if you take a sell here, this is your next target, a 420 pip target. Now, yeah, I called this level out, I think, on a Sunday with all of my students. So everyone managed to get this 420 pip move. Okay, so that's that. Now look at this. Now, if we wait, look how interesting this gets. Okay, if we wait for the first two candles to end, I told you the first two candles are what? Asia. First one, second one. Can you see what they did? Something important. We had news this day. They left behind the Asian low right above the daily and the H4 level. Can you say it? So now you can have more faith on this obstacle and then sell this thing into the Asian low or into the daily support and then buy it back up here. Can you see it? Okay. And also we had this trend line. See that? It's a trend line, right? That's a trend line. Look at this. Now H4 has rejected that H4 resistance. Go back to the H1. Even H1 has done a rejection. I did not buy it right. I did not sell it right away. I waited for the rejection. And then when the market came back here once again, sell it. Can you see it? Look at the timing. 11:30 a.m. my time, London kill zone. We know London does a manipulation of Asia, right? Look at this. Asian low taken out perfectly during London kill zone. London Open, actually. See, this entry was right at London Open. That is where the entry was. I'm sorry. London kill zone was where the entry was. There comes London Open, manipulation of Asia. Rejection, entry, boom. And then what happens? Let's assume you did not enter here. No problem. After the rejection, what do? Buy it. See how interesting this gets? Look how quick the sell was. From here to here, 70 pips, 80 pips. Yeah, I paid myself at 70 pips because I paid myself at the Asian low. See that? Exactly 70 pips. Okay, so there we go. A drop into these areas, daily and H1 levels. Okay, so you understand why we trusted this obstacle, even though there was this weekly and daily levels in here, right? Weekly and H4 levels. Why did we trust this? Because Asia left its low right above this daily and H1 levels. Okay, we waited for the rejection, then we entered. Oh, can you see that? Okay, that's done. Now you're on the buy in here. Okay, no re-entries in here, unfortunately. No problem. Look at this. Okay, there we go. Starting to move up. Now we are on the buy here. Look at this. Already up by 100 pips. You can pay yourself at 100 pips or else leave it here itself. And then I placed one entry here and another entry here. There we go. Can you see that? Now you need to understand that intraday, swing. Okay, pay yourself from this. You already paid yourself from the Asian low because you understood the reason. You bought this here. You paid yourself here. Now you're taking a sell here. Are you going to pay yourself here? No. You know this is going to be long term, right? And look at the timing. This is also important. This is right at 5:30 p.m. my time. This is New York Open, right at New York Open. And what happened? Dropping. Look at the drop. Why are we getting these huge drops? because now we are tapping into weekly levels, right? Weekly and H4 levels. Okay, so that is why we are getting these massive moves. And then what happened? There it drops, moving down, moving down. Now, if we waited for this day to end, let me put the replay tool right here. Go to H4. Can you see the drop? Okay, so now look at this. Like, did you see how small? Like, we were in a very small price action, right? This sell, this buy, we managed to get this sell in here from the resistance. You saw the reason why. This buy in here and then the sell in here. Okay, this was a perfect day for me. Okay, if you understood storylines and obstacles and entries and whatever, these are just perfect. Just perfect. Okay, so look at this. Now we are dropping. Now the day is over. What do you do once the day is over? You go to the daily. Can you see what the daily has done this day? Daily started a bearish storyline, right? Daily started a bearish storyline. How did daily start a bearish storyline? Daily rejected a daily resistance. Isn't this a resistance? It is, right? Look at this. See that? Daily rejects a daily resistance. What's the next thing that needs to happen? Go to H4. H4 does a bearish breakout. A QM, the same thing that happened here, right? Same thing that happened here. What happened this day? Daily rejected a daily support. H4 gave you a bullish QM, right? Am I right? You can see that. Same thing happened here. Daily rejected a daily resistance. H4 gave you a bearish QM. So now what do we know? Daily bearish, weekly bearish, buys are risky, right? Buys will be very, very risky. You need to understand that, right? Buys will be very, very risky. Okay, there we go. Now what do? We start looking for selling opportunities, right? We're going to start looking for selling opportunities now. Okay, so now let me show you what I had in mind. I thought, okay, I told you if it's a daily bearish storyline, H4 will be the time frame for entries. But I told you the best entry will come, the best zone to pay attention to will be the daily and the H4 level. Right now, if I go to daily, it's the closest daily level we have, right? Don't go here, you will get confused. Give me a second. Okay. So this is the daily level we have. Like I told you, don't focus here. Do not focus here. You will get confused because there are so many levels here. Then you will come here. There are millions of levels here. You will get confused. Don't do that. Stick to recent price action. This is the closest level we have, right? So that one in line with H4, you could have refined it here. Something like this, right? You could have done something like this. No problem at all. Okay, so I did this, but then again, you need to pay attention to what's going on, right? You need to pay attention to what's going on. Now, I told you, if it's a daily bearish storyline, H4 will be the time frame for entries. I told that to you, right? Now, if we wait for a while, look at this. First one, second one. Now you see why I skipped the first two H4 candles, right? Why is that? Because that's Asia and I do not trade Asia. Look at this. Asia made its high right below this open close. A swing high if you go to the lower time frames. Look at this. Yeah. See that? A swing high. Asia made its high right below that H4 level. Okay, so now this zone also, this zone gets interesting as well, right? This zone gets interesting as well. I did not take a direct entry though because there were better levels in here. I did not take direct entries. Let me show you how I entered. Waited for this candle to end. How did it end? How did it close? Right below that. See that? Now I have to have more faith in this level, right? Because Asia taken out. Very clearly, Asia is taken out. The market has closed below that open close. So if the next candle comes into this zone, there comes my entry. Okay, if the next candle comes into this. Now, do you see the precision without even going to the M15, M30, or M5, or M1? You don't have to go there. That's the thing. Okay, all you have to do is just wait, learn how to wait, and you will get the best entries. Okay, all you have to do is just learn how to wait. Okay, don't just pull the trigger for the sake of taking an entry. That is what most people do here. Okay, they think, okay, I'm an intraday trader, so I must get an entry today. No, if your setup isn't there, just sit back and watch. That's all you can do. Okay, you can't force anything here. You need to like wait until they develop your setup. That is what you could do here. Now look at this. H4. Now we will talk about setups. Okay, we have different types of setups. I'll explain that. We have one very strong setup. I will explain that as well later. Look at this. H4 has rejected this. If the next candle comes here, what do? Enter. Boom. Look at the drop. Can you see it? So even for this sell, where is your target? Here. 220 pips. So from up here, from this resistance, we sold it. How much is that? 450, 450 plus 220. How much is that? You have a 670 pip move, right? Just imagine using a one standard here and a one standard here. How much is that? You have more than $6,000 in 2 days. All you had to do was wait on Monday and Tuesday. Okay, and even more because why? This sell, this buy, and then this sell. Okay, you had so many entries, so many entries. That's the thing. Okay, you had so many entries. So did you see what happened here? It's a perfect week, right? Just a perfect week. Okay, so yeah, I can't get any better. Look at that. And look at this. We could have entered here. I entered here, stopped out at break even, entered once again in here. This was the daily support, refined to the H1 like this. Can you see it? Oh, okay, let me show you another thing. I need to show you that as well. We forgot to go to the daily time frame. Let's go to the daily time frame. Okay, this day what happened? Did daily start any bearish storyline? Yeah, the bearish storyline started here. Did it end? No, it did. It never ended, right? It never ended. So which means you can still start looking for sells. Can you understand it? You can still start looking for sales. Now, oh my God, now if you are flexible, you can make so much from this. Okay, you can make so much money from this method if you are very flexible. Okay, so it takes time for you to get to that level. Now look at this. One important thing. Now daily started a bearish storyline in here, right? Daily rejected the daily. H4 broke structure and all that. So daily started a bearish storyline and it never ended. Why do I say it never ended? Because I told you, how does the storyline end? The same way it started, right? Do we have a daily rejecting a daily support and H4 breaking structure to the upside? No. So you can't say that daily has started a bullish storyline or the daily bearish storyline ended. So that means you can still look for sells, right? You can still look for sells. Okay. So where can you start selling it from? Where can you start selling it from? I told you the best levels are going to be on the daily plus the H4 levels, right? Now, if I go to the daily, the closest daily level we have is here. Why am I paying attention to this? Because this level was once used as a support, not once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. Okay, so, and then you can refine this level here. Or is this open, close? Can you say? This is the best level we have for selling, right? These are the best daily levels we have for selling. Let's go to the H4. You can do some refinements and all that if you want to. Like this. Now, if you wait for the first two candles to end, first one, I got this buy in here as well. Why? Previous day's low. I had a buy limit set here on that H1 level. I showed it to you, right? H1 level that was inside of the daily level, and then second one. Okay. It is over. Now, I took a buy in here as well. Ah, no. It wasn't tapped. I wanted to take a buy here. Let me show you. I think I missed it. Yeah, I placed a buy limit here. Wanted to buy it. Now, these are advanced concepts. Okay, these are advanced stuff. I will explain that later. I don't want to confuse you. I'm showing you only storylines and all of that. Okay, now look at this. Now, what can you do? You can take a buy here, close it all the way up here. That is 100 pips. Okay, so you can do that. These are your Asian highs and all of that. So I placed the buy limit here and missed it. See that? Missed it completely. So no entries there. No entries there. I had a buy limit set here, so did not get tapped in. Now look at this. Tapped right into that zone, and then what happened? Melted. See that? Now what more do you need, right? Look at this. From here, 108 pip zone. Aren't you going to pay yourself? You will pay yourself. And also, it's a Friday, so you can't expect it to give you huge drops. You need to at least pay attention to this support. And yeah, I paid myself at this support. If you go to my Telegram channel, you'll see how I paused how I paused the screenshot right here. Because there's a reason why I paused my screenshot here. That is because we had this support on the H4 and then this trend line was broken. So we had a good zone in here. That is why I closed my entry in here. I took a sell here, closed it right here because it's a Friday. Friday, like after New York, after around 2 hours after New York, it might run into consolidation. So I'm closing the sell, and then what happened? Like this. That is what happened. Okay, so did not take any buys here, but you see this, right? If you understand storylines, it's going to be crazy. Okay, it will be crazy. That I can guarantee you. Okay, so for direction, storylines are the best. Okay, so now we were talking about very recent price action, right? We were talking about this recent price action, and this one in here, this was something very new for me. I'll show you. What happened this day was something very new for me. I haven't seen that in my back testing as well, so I got stopped out. Not stopped out. I could not take any entries. Let me show you. Now this week, what do we do at the start of every week? What do we do at the start of every week? I told you we have to check the weekly time frame, right? We have to check the weekly time frame at the start of every week, right? At the start of every week. Okay. Now, did weekly bearish storyline ever end? No. How does a weekly bearish storyline end? The same way a bullish it started, right? A weekly has to reject a weekly support, and then daily has to give you a bullish breakout. Do you have anything like that? No. Do you even have a bullish breakout? No. Simple. Even this week, it continued that bearish storyline. See, weekly rejected a weekly resistance. What is this? This is SBR, right? Support, broken, turning into resistance. Weekly breaking weekly, daily giving you all these bearish breakouts and stuff. You can see that, right? We have that. Okay, that is what we clearly have. Okay, that is what we clearly have. And then let's go to daily. Yeah, we are on the daily time frame. Currently, we are here. Now, what do we know? Now, what do we know? We know that weekly is in a bearish storyline, right? So in a weekly bearish storyline, what are your obstacles? Daily. Now I'll tell you why this day got me confused. Not yeah, this was confusing actually because I haven't seen this in my backtesting as well, because I still backtest and I still learn. So because there is always room to improve, right? You need to understand that. Just because I'm teaching you guys doesn't mean that I know everything. No, I don't know everything. Okay, I'm still learning as well. Okay, so now for this cell, let me show you. This is the trend line I used for this cell. See that? Okay, so yeah, these aren't hindsight. Okay, I called this out, all of this. Look at that. Trend line, maybe like this. There we go. That was in line with that weekly level. That is how the sell came. Okay, that's that. Now look at this. That's a daily support, right? That's a daily support. Why are we paying attention to a daily support? Because in a weekly bearish storyline, a daily support will be an obstacle, right? A daily support will be an obstacle. Now, if I play one more candle that the daily ended, can you see what happened? Daily was anyway bearish, but this day it changed. Daily closes above a daily support, right? Daily closes above a daily support. If you go to H4 and go to the line chart, on that same day, we got a bullish QM. A minor break, but we still got that, right? Daily rejecting daily and H4 creating a bullish QM. Can you see that? It's there. It is clearly there. So which means daily starts a bullish storyline this day, right? Daily has started a bullish storyline this day. So if daily starts a bullish storyline, your entries are going to come from the H4. But I told you the best time frame, the best zone to pay attention to will be on the daily and the H4. Okay. Now the daily we have this. Now this is a time when fresh and unfresh levels play out, because these aren't fresh levels. Okay, now I don't focus a lot on fresh and unfresh. I'll talk about that later. But yeah, in here I think we got a manipulation because of fresh and unfresh thing. I'll explain that. Look at this. This, if you are not using the levels that were used again, you're not going to use this level again, right? Because can you see how the market used this level in here? Then let's go to H4. Even on the H4, this support is not fresh, right? Look at this. All of this. So now I saw all of this in hindsight, okay? Not trying to tell you, oh, I understood all of this when it was happening. No, I did not understand any of this when it was happening. Okay. So now if you like, I did not trust this level because of all these long wicks and all of that. Look at that liquidity and all of that. I did not trust this level. So if entries are going to come from the H4, the next closest H4 level we have below this is all the way down here. Can you see that? Okay, because like I told you, if you are considering fresh and unfresh, this is not fresh at all, right? This is not fresh at all. So the next H4 closest level we have is all the way down here. Okay, so then what did the market do? Okay, look at this. This is also important. Daily bullish storyline started, right? Daily bullish storyline started. So in a daily bullish storyline, who are your obstacles? H4 resistance. See that? H4 resistance. Okay, now look what happened. Where did the sell come from? H4. Okay, where did the buy come from? H4. Boom. Can you see that? Okay, so yeah, very important. Very, very important. If you understand the storylines, it's going to be awesome. Trust me. Okay, it'll be awesome. Okay, so just pay attention to that. Okay, so did you understand that? Now let's see some old examples as well. Let's see some old examples as well. Yeah, look at this one. Same thing in here. Let's see a clear one, a better one. Let me see. Let me see. These were consolidations. Yeah, I'll show you some textbook setups with storylines and all of that. What about this one? Let me see. Give me a second. I'm trying to show you some clear examples so that way you will understand it properly. Okay. Yeah, this one might be a good one. Look at this. This day, can you see how daily started a bearish storyline very clearly? How did it start? How should it start? Daily rejected a daily resistance. See that? Daily rejected a daily resistance. And what's the next thing that needs to happen? H4 has to give you what? A bearish QM, right? Or is a bearish breakout. That is what the H4 has to do. Now, if we go back to the H4 time frame, let me go back to the H4. What do we have on the H4 time frame? A bearish QM. See that? Can you see it? Can you see the bearish QM or is the bearish breakout? You can see that very clear. So which means this day you know that daily starts a bearish storyline, right? With that day you know that daily starts a bearish storyline. So you can expect the market to take out the previous day's low, right? So this day, now you know we're going into Thursday. Now on Thursday we can expect the market to drop into the previous day's low, right? So let's go to H4 like this. Now, if in a bearish storyline, if it's a daily bearish storyline, on what time frame do you have your entries? H4, right? On H4. So now on the H4, we have these, right? We have this open close, which can be even refined into the head and shoulder, and we had the resistance, right? We had all these areas. Now once we talk about decision points and all of that, yeah, I'll explain them later. Okay, I'll explain them later because we had this decision point. I'll explain all of that later. Okay, but for now, let's just pay attention to the very basics. The basics are the most important thing. Look at this. We had all of this. Okay, we had all of this. Now, what do? We wait for the first few candles to end because why? That is Asia, right? First one, second one. Okay, just because you had all these levels marked out, just because you had these levels marked out incorrectly, does it even matter? No, because you don't trade Asia, you skip that. So it just broke through during Asia. So who cares, right? And what did they do? The same example that I showed you. Left behind the Asian high, right below this resistance. Now, if you take a sell here, where is your target? Previous day's low. Right here, 190 pips. You can even hold it into 200 pips. Can you see how big the targets are? Like this is not underestimating you or whatever. Okay, but most of you haven't even had more than 150 pip trades, right? Planned 150 pip trades. Most of you haven't had that, right? I haven't had that when I was trading SMC. I haven't planned 100, 150 pip trades. I never had that. I have to be honest. Okay, like I had setups, but not very well planned like this. So now you know if you're taking a sell here, where's your target? Here. What happens? Wait. There we go. Entered. Boom. Look at the drop. Can you see now? Like, what more do you need, right? What more do you need? If you follow the steps that I'm showing you, yeah, you will get all these types of entries because I can't make this stuff up, right? It's the same thing that's happening again and again, again and again and again. Okay. Now you need to understand, like, when do we get these huge moves and all of that? Okay, when do we, like, even in here, I told my students, okay, after we get a bullish breakout in here, like once we get that bullish breakout in here, gold will fly into the all-time highs. That is what I told them. Why did I tell them that? Okay, because at this point, let me put it here. At this point in here, can we go to the monthly time frame? Yeah, we can start from the monthly time frame. At this point in here, monthly was also bullish. Okay, monthly was also bullish. The monthly bullish storyline started here if you pay close attention because monthly rejected a monthly support and then weekly gave you that bullish breakout or is in here, no problem. Or is you can even say the monthly storyline started here, by monthly rejecting a monthly support, and then weekly giving you bullish breakouts. Okay, so whatever. But now what do we know? We know that um, monthly was anyway in a bullish storyline, right? Monthly was in a bullish storyline. Okay, monthly bullish. Now, if we go to weekly, weekly was not in a bullish storyline. Okay, weekly was in a bearish storyline that started here. Can you see that? Weekly rejected a weekly resistance, and then daily gave us a bearish breakout here. Okay, so at this point, at this current point, at this exact point, monthly was bullish, weekly was bearish, daily was also bearish. Okay, at this point, monthly was bullish, weekly and daily was bearish. But then I told them, okay, once we now look at this. In a monthly bullish storyline, who will be your, this is the important thing, okay? In a monthly bullish storyline, who will be your entry, like what will be your entry and obstacle time frame? That will be your weekly.
Weekly resistance.
Exactly. Weekly resistance and weekly support will be your entries and obstacles. Now, what is this? A weekly support, a good zone to pay attention to, right? That's a good zone to pay attention to. So we had that. Okay, the start of a new month. Let's go to the daily. You could even do some refinements. I can't remember where I refined it into, maybe H4 or H1. Yeah, I don't remember. I refined it because I had a perfect entry. I think maybe some decision point, maybe this thing in here. Was it here? I think it was this level. I think it was this level. I don't know. Okay, so I told them once we get this bullish breakout, gold is going to fly. Why? Then all time frames are turning bullish, right? So now remember, this is when you can expect massive moves. When monthly, weekly, daily, when all three time frames are in the same storyline, when all three are in a bullish storyline, it's going to fly. When all three are in a bearish storyline, it's going to melt like butter, like 1,000, 2,000 pips. Okay, that is what's going to happen. That is how you know, that is why all three time frames are important. If you analyze all three time frames and understand their direction, you will know when to expect huge moves. You will know when to expect consolidations. Why are we in a consolidation in here? Because monthly bullish, weekly, daily bearish, right? So you can't expect huge moves, consolidates. Okay, let's say monthly, weekly bullish, daily bearish. Still, it's not going to be that fast. It will be fast, not that fast. When all three time frames are bullish, it's going to fly. Okay, it is going to fly. So now if we wait, let's see. Okay, not yet. I had my entry right here. Not this day though. I think it was on a Tuesday. Yeah, there we go. Right here. I'll explain these. Okay, I'll explain these are decision points, some advanced thing. Now look at this. Once again, we have a break to the upside. Bullish breakout. Now the only problem is this is a Tuesday, right? Weekly candle has not closed yet, but daily has given you a bullish breakout and all of that. Now we know, okay, after this week ends, right? Let's say the week ended somewhere here. Let's say the week just ended somewhere here. Then what do we know? All three time frames are bullish then, right? All the time frames are then bullish. So now what happened? Monthly bullish, daily has also turned bullish. You can't refer to the weekly because weekly has not closed yet. So now if the market comes back down, what can you do? You can start looking for buys. Okay, so this broke, and then what happened? There we go. Into the all-time highs. Can you see? Right into the all-time high. So in the trend line example, on the trend line day, I showed you, right? The day when we talked about trend lines, I showed you the entries, right? One entry here. Why did we enter here? This level was used as a resistance many times. Entry here. After the rejection, entry here, right? And then another entry here from a trend line. Another entry here from a trend line. See? If I go to H1, continue buying. See that? Buy, 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 moving up. Can you see that? So when all time frames turn bullish, yeah, you can make so much money. That's the thing. Okay, you can make a huge amount of money if all the time frames are in line with each other, and if you have a good entry. Okay, if you have a good entry. So this is it about storylines. Okay, I know it is not easy, not easy at all. Okay, so like I told you, that is why I told you it is not easy, and it will take some time for you to practice. Okay, it will take some time for you to practice. It took me a lot of while to practice. Okay, not going to lie, like I told you, I don't want to sell dreams here. Okay, so it will take some time to practice, but if you master this, trust me, you will have entries every single day, almost every now. I'll tell you, you will have entries every single day, but I'm not going to tell it to you right away, because then you'll think, as soon as we don't have an entry one day, you'll think, he told me we have entries every single day. This method doesn't work. It fails and all that. Don't think that way. Okay. You will have entries every single day, but for that, you need to master this. Okay. You need to master this. Okay. Because even I'm still learning. Even I'm still learning. It doesn't end here. Okay. Learning here does not end, because for me, even I was even profitable with SMC. But then, like, as humans, we need to always evolve, right? You shouldn't stop at one point. Just because you're making money with SMC, if you think that is too much work to do, if you think that's stressful and all that, no problem. Just let people think whatever. If you have to find what's easy for you, what's simple for you. So that is what I thought. Okay, SMC wasn't that good enough for me. That is why I searched SNR, learned SNR, and now I'm going with this. Okay, so I'm pretty sure this is the best way to trade. Very simple, because once you once you master this thing, like Diera says, now for Diera, she tells you it takes only 15 seconds for her to do her daily analysis. Okay, but for me it takes around 30 seconds to 1 minute. Okay, but just think of it, 30 seconds to 1 minute for your daily analysis. Okay, but because trading isn't just pulling the trigger on everything, like when the market reaches zones, right? No, it's about waiting. It's like they tell you, right? 10% buying, 10% selling, and 80% waiting. So if you learn how to wait, if you learn until the market, like if you master patience, if you always wait until the market reaches into the good zones and then pull the trigger, you're always going to make some money. Okay, so master this. You need to master this. Send me examples. Okay, it will take time. Give it some time. Okay, do not feel frustrated. Watch the recording again and again and again and again. Watch it as many times as you want, because we are here for long term, right? You don't want to just watch a session today and make money tomorrow. No, you want to make a career with trading. That is why you like, I hope that is why all of you guys are here, right? I'm here for that. Okay, so give it some time. Nothing is easy. Okay, nothing comes easy. Give it some time. Just slowly understand the concepts, and once you understand the concepts, you will see what a killer this is. Okay, this will give like, there's nothing that can beat this way. I can guarantee you that. Okay, so I don't know if there are people who has other ways. I don't know, but for me, this is the best way so far. Okay, and I'll show you once we go into obstacles. I'll show you how to trade obstacles very effectively. I'll show you how to, like, I'll show you the types of setups we have and all of that. But before all of that comes direction. Okay, before all of that comes direction. Now you know SNR, now you know trend lines. Trend lines aren't like that important, but it's good that you know that, because yeah, it's good. Daily and I'm sorry, not, not direction. Now you know storyline, so it'll be awesome. Okay, so now can you understand this? Do you have any questions? I know it's a lot. It's a lot now, even though it wasn't a big session for the fresh, for the brand new people into SNR. This might be something like like so much knowledge for you to absorb. No problem. Just take some time. I'll send you the recording as soon as possible. Practice. That is what's going to help you with this. And you see my entries, right? You see my entries on my Telegram channel and all that. All of that are using these same exact concepts. I haven't hidden anything here. Okay, so you need to practice a lot. You need to practice a lot. You need to backtest. We will have a backtesting session. The next session will be a backtesting session on storylines, entries, and all of that. We will go through that. Okay, but before that, just let me know. Do you have any questions? Anything I need to go through? Yeah.
I have one.
Yes.
So for breaks of structures, will we only be considering QMs or we can consider open close breaks as well?
Open close breaks are okay, but open close breaks are only hints. Okay, open close breaks are only hints. So just stick to QMs. That is the most high probability. Okay, so open close breaks are fine actually. Like even in here, there were no structure breaks, but we only had an open close break. But still, we got the drop and all that stuff. But I'll tell you when to trust open close breaks and when not to. Okay, so we'll get into that later. For now, just stick to structure breaks only. That's better. Okay, that is better now. For our confirmation setup, yeah, the confirmation setup is also the same as the storyline. Okay, now I told you day rejecting daily, H4 giving you a breakout, right? Now for the confirmation setup, we have H4 rejecting H4 and then H1 giving us breakouts, and that breakout can be open close or else even QMs, whatever. Okay, but for storylines, of course, it has to be a QM, so it is always better. Okay, so I'll go through all of that. Don't worry. Okay.
Yep. And also about the Asian timing. So when do we actually know the Asian high has been made? So what time?
Skip the first two H4 candles. Very simple. Wait for the first two H4 candles to end. That'll be Asia. Okay.
First two H4 candles.
Yeah, first two H4 candles are your Asian session. That's it.
And also, are there any days when we can expect high volatility, like Mondays or Fridays?
No. If there is news, you can expect high volatility. Today, you can, of course, expect high volatility because in 1 hour you're getting news, FOMC. Okay, so other than that, you can expect high volatility. Let's say maybe monthly was bullish, weekly was bullish, daily was still bearish, and let's say maybe on a Wednesday, daily turns bullish as well. Then from Thursday onwards, yeah, you can expect very high volatility, like it just flies. So like if let's say you have FO like NFP on Friday, let's say monthly was bullish, weekly was bullish, daily turns bullish on a Wednesday, maybe Monday and Tuesday it was low, and daily turns bullish on a Wednesday. Thursday might consolidate, building up liquidity, and then let's say Friday NFP comes, it will just fly. That is what's going to happen. That is when you can expect momentum. Okay, other than that, yeah, I don't know when to expect momentum other than that. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. What else? What else? Let me know. Anyone else with questions?
Yeah, are the QMs and the breakouts, are they the same or different?
What? The QM?
The QMs and then the breakouts.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Okay, so it's a QM is a fancy way of calling a breakout. Okay, so something like this. Okay, there's a bullish breakout. A bearish QM is a bearish breakout. A bullish QM is a bullish breakout. Simple. That's it. Okay. A QM is the formation. Okay, because if you understand this formation, and if it is there as a result of a rejection, it's very high probable. That's it. Okay, so it's just a breakout. That's like it's the same thing. That's all you need to understand. Okay. Yeah, what else? Let me know.
Yeah, I have a question. So when you talk about like candles closing, right?
Yes.
How much does it have closed by? Like if you close by 1 pip, does that just count as a proper?
A rejection? Like
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still a rejection. Okay, so let's say there's a resistance. Let's say today it closed like a pip below this. This is 1977.60, and let's say the market closes like 1977.59. No problem. That is still a rejection. Okay, but that rejection has to be followed by a breakout for you to trust the rejection completely on a lower time frame, one time frame lower. Can you understand that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does because before at the start you said that weekly, let's say price is on the weekly, right? Let's say
Yes.
it's at a resistance and you're aiming for support, right? So
Yes.
can price just completely reverse before touching a weekly support?
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. That is why we pay attention to the obstacles. Okay. Before tapping into a weekly support, it can completely reverse. Okay. So that is why we pay attention to the obstacles on a lower time frame. Okay. So it doesn't have to, sometimes it'll, like most of the time, what starts on a weekly will end on a weekly, but it can even sometimes reverse from a daily level. Okay. So that is why we are paying attention to obstacles. Okay.
Okay. So how high probability, or rather in terms of like how often do you see like these storylines actually like fully playing out?
More than 90% of the time. Okay, more than 90% of the time, the storylines will play out. Okay, the thing is, until you master it, it'll be a little hard for you to spot. Okay, but after that, of course, you'll see it very clearly as soon as, because make it a rule. Okay, make it a rule to check the weekly time frame at the start of every new week, the monthly time frame at the start of every month, and the daily time frame at the start of every day. Make it a habit. Okay, make it a habit so that way you will not get lost. So now, let's say tomorrow, what are you going to check tomorrow? You need to see what did the previous candle do. Okay, like for example, let's say we're starting a brand new day. Okay, let's say we're starting a brand new day. How are you going to start? You're starting from the daily time frame. What do you want to see? You need to see if daily has rejected a daily resistance or a support. Yeah, now we did reject a resistance and we also rejected a support. Then this rejections has to be followed by what? A breakout on one time frame lower. Now, if you go to H4, we had a breakout on the H4, right? So which means we can still look for selling opportunities. Can you understand that? So make it a habit to analyze your the direction time frames at the start of every month, week, and then day. Okay, so remember that very well. Don't worry, once we get into the backtesting sessions, you will see what I'm talking about. Okay, you will see what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, I have some more questions actually. I wrote down like a bunch. So
Okay.
next question is, so when I see you do refinement, right? When you refine the H4.
Yes.
So like for example the H4, right? How far in terms of peak pips? Like, does it
Yeah,
have to
in
be
my
before, like,
opinion, yeah,
it's too far, right?
yeah, a 25 to 30 pip refinement is perfect. Okay, a 25 to 30 pip refinement is perfect. Now, let's say your weekly level was here. Okay, so you can maybe refine it into a H4 or as H1 or as a daily zone, which is around 30 to like 25 to 30 pips away, like this. You can do that. Okay, but like there are times when it even moves into like 100 pips far from the zone into another zone and then moving up, but those are stuff that doesn't happen very often. Okay, so that is why a 25 to 30 pip refinement is perfect. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then when do you refine all the way down to H1? Because sometimes you just stop at H4, right?
Yeah. Now, if there is like, let's say, how can I explain that? Now, let's say we had a weekly level in here. Let's say we had a weekly level in here, and let's say we had another H4 support in here and another H1 support in here. I'll just refine it to the H4 and then put my stop loss below the H1. That's it. Okay, so you can even refine it here, but then again, sometimes I fear missing the entries. Now, those are stuff that will honestly come to you with experience. Okay, so like these aren't very rule based. Okay, these aren't very rule based. So those will come to you with experience. Okay, honestly, I do not have any explanations for that. Okay, I can't just make up stuff just because you're asking a question. These are stuff that will come to you with experience. That's what I can tell you. Okay, so sometimes what I do is, now let's say this is a weekly level, you can refine it to H4, and maybe if there is an H1 level in here, you can refine here. That is not a problem, but I prefer maybe putting a buy limit here, stop loss below the H1 level, because sometimes it might come here or it might not. So that is why my stop loss is below both the levels. Okay, so stuff like that.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next question is,
Yeah.
like, what kind of win rate and like RR do you usually see?
Yeah, now my win rate will complete, like, it does not depend on yours, to be honest. Okay, because it takes time, right? It will take time. Now, I'll tell you this. Okay, if you're starting with this way, okay, do not focus on 1 to 10s and 1 to 15s and all of that right away. Focus on 1 to 3s. Okay, consistent 1 to 3s, you will see a win rate of more than 75%. Okay, I'll show you now. I'll show you my confirmation setup, the signature setup that I always trade. I'll show you that, and with that, you will see you will always have more than a 75% win rate. Those are the types of setups that you're going to place on your prop firm accounts. Okay, and that will be a 1 to 3 setup, but a very, very consistent setup. You will get it almost every day. I'll explain that later. Okay, I'll explain that later. Before that, you need to master direction. Okay, you need to master the direction, because that setup will fail if your direction is wrong. Okay, so you need to understand direction, and then that setup comes. That has I can guarantee that more than a 75% win rate. Okay, once you go to the backtest sessions, you will see if I'm yeah, you'll see if what I'm talking about. I'm not lying. Okay.
All right, nice. Okay, last question. So you talk about Diera a lot, right?
Yes.
Does she still have an Instagram or
Nah,
something?
bro. Yeah, I just
okay.
found out her screenshots because no, I did not buy it. A friend of mine bought it from a Malaysian website called Shopee or something. Okay, so it had around 800 of her screenshots or something. I studied all of it. Okay, I studied all of it, like went through all of her notes. Like she has like on her stories, she always drops hints, right? So I have backtested every single one of her entries, and there are still some stuff to figure out because I still have no idea how she bought it here and then called out this exact level for exit. I have no idea how she did that. I'm still practicing because because most people think just because I talk about that, she's my mentor. No, she did not mentor anyone. Okay, she did not do any that. Like she's just an inspiration. I'm just practicing her entries and that's it. Okay, because if you practice her entries, you will see how she has the same, like for every single setup she has SNR, TL, and multi time frame. Only those three she uses for her entries. If you practice it enough, you will see that. Okay, so I'm still getting there, but if I figure out more stuff, I will explain it to you guys. Don't worry. Okay, but I'm not just gonna like, let's say I'm practicing something today and something I understand something new today. I'm not going to explain it to you tomorrow. No, I need to practice hard and then see if it really works or not, because could be beginner's luck, right? So that is why it takes time. But I'm still practicing. I have some new stuff figured out as well. I know how to use that timeline thing as well, but you know that timeline, right? Timeline. I'm not even going to show you because it'll confuse you.
Yeah,
A timeline is
I have no idea what that is.
a timeline is like you will know the exact date and time when the market is going to reverse from a specific point. Okay, so
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so it'll take time. Okay, because there are some Malaysian people like who just draws lines around like like a line that is 2 weeks later, and then the market does a reversal on that exact day. I don't know how they do that. I'm slowly getting there. This is not even important for trading. Okay, these are just
Yeah.
advanced stuff you do once you once you are profitable. That's all you can do. Don't focus on that stuff right away. Okay, I'll explain them later. Later. Okay, once
Mhm.
I see everyone taking good trades, once I see everyone profitable, I'll explain that stuff. Okay, right now, if I show you that, yeah, most people just use those words to get that hype, to get people into the mentorships and all that. But I don't do that because it's not even necessary. Okay, honestly, these timelines and all that,
Yeah.
it's not even necessary. Okay, who wants to know a time, right? Anyway, you're sitting in front of the chart every single day. So who cares at what time the market does a reversal? Okay, so
Mhm.
we don't focus on that. Okay.
Yeah. That's all I got. Yeah. Thanks so
Okay.
much. Appreciate it, bro. Thanks so much.
Awesome, bro. Awesome. Okay, what else? Anyone else? Let me know if you have any questions.
With regards to
Yes.
the Asian range or
Yes.
time, you mentioned you just count candles. So I'm not sure how to start. From where do I start
Yeah.
counting
So depending on
candles?
time frames, right? Now it's like this. Now just go to the daily time frame. Okay, just go to the daily time frame. Yeah, I'll show you an easy way. Okay, because now don't now this is not even important. Okay, for the way we trade liquidity Asian sessions, they aren't even important. But since I'm used to SMC now, if you like I told you, most of you guys have had one-on-one sessions with me. Then you guys would have seen I have showed you the signature setup, right? How I trade the manipulation of the Asian low during London, or is the manipulation of the Asian high during London. These were the two signature setups that I traded when I was trading SMC. So I'm still used to Asia because this thing works very well. Now, the best way for you to count the candles is go to the daily time frame, put a vertical line on where the day started. Okay, and then from that point onwards, from that candle which is on the vertical line and the second candle, that is Asia. Those two candles are your Asian range. Very simple. Okay, those two candles will be your Asian range. That's it. Okay. Okay. What else? What else? Let me know. Anything else that I need to go through? Yes.
No, I'm good. Thanks, bro.
Okay, awesome. Then, yeah, I hope everything was clear. Please make sure you do the back testing, okay? Because or else you won't understand. Trust me, you will not understand. Watch the session as many times as it takes. Okay. Every single word I spoke was important. Okay. So watch it slowly. I know I speak fast. I'm used to that way. Okay. So just pause it, watch it slowly. Just go to the charts and then backtest the same examples that I'm showing you. Then you will understand what I'm talking about. Slowly do it. Slowly do it. No rush. Okay. We have more than enough time in the world. Okay. Because I'm not going to dump you after 1 month or whatever. No, you have all the time in you have all the time. So just slowly take it. Okay. Do not force anything. Do not rush anything. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else? I see someone unmuted. No?
No, brother.
Okay. Awesome. Then that's it for today, guys. So yeah, before we go on to the next session, I want everyone to practice this, okay? Because I'm not going to cover anything unless you guys show me examples and then show me that you understand. Because this mentorship has to be, this is, let me